Hi, my name's Phil, and welcome to LabourVision, where we take a look at an aspect of Labour's policies in a particular area compared with where the Conservatives have left us. As a net zero has been made newsworthy again, it's worth bearing in mind what Labour's policies currently are and how they've reacted to Seven Bin Sunak scaling back our legal commitments for the sake of a few votes. Votes which he actually seems to have lost looking at the latest polls. So we are at the beginning of a new industrial revolution. It's a race for the world to reduce carbon emissions. Under Biden, America has really gone for it with the Inflation Reduction Act, which is a $2 trillion investment in this new revolution. It's happening. The rest of the world's on board as well. And it's a superb piece of politics from Biden because it not only drives moves to net zero, but it's doing so by creating good quality jobs in the areas that felt left behind and therefore felt a resonance with Donald Trump's politics. So Labour want to do the same sort of thing. The emphasis in their Green Prosperity Plan has been very much on things like the lower cost of energy bills, but the better quality of jobs all over the country. Labour have announced specific plans to double onshore wind, treble solar, quadruple offshore wind. And this is important for two main reasons. The first is to increase the amount of low carbon energy production in the UK so we can try and reduce our reliance on the higher carbon production. But the second is because as we move towards electrifying our country, we think of transport particularly, for example, we need much more capacity in the national grid, like many cars right now power themselves with fossil fuels, go to the petrol station, fill up. But as we increase the proportion of motor vehicles which use electricity as their only power source, well, we're going to be consuming way more electricity, of course. And at the moment, we don't have the capacity. It's suggested we basically need to double the capacity in order to properly electrify the country. We also need way more charging stations in some parts of the country, and Labour have said they are going to accelerate the rollout of that. And this will also mean, of course, for our power needs, a new generation of nuclear power, something that seems to have cross-party support now. Labour also have policies of streamlining the planning application process for renewable energy projects. Like, there's currently a lot of inconsistency around the country. You will read about a small-scale renewable energy project in one part of the country, and it's a local entrepreneur sets it up, but then a different business owner in a different part of the country tries to do the same thing, can't get the planning permission. Or when they can, it takes a very long time. And we do not have a very long time. So Labour have said they want to massively reduce the time it takes to get these things approved or disapproved. And from the point of view of bringing the public along, one really important statement from Labour in the last year has been to make sure that no regions are like in the blind spot, that we don't have workers or communities left behind. Because, I grew up in a Yorkshire mining village in the 80s. So that was interesting. And it occurred to me that the great tragedy was not so much the end of coal mining. For some people, maybe it was. But industries will come and go. It was clear to me, even at a young age, if it's becoming increasingly difficult and expensive to mine, the miners would say, well, there's still coal down there. Yeah, but if it's becoming increasingly difficult and expensive to mine, then the days of the industry are limited anyway. Whether they had to end there or then is irrelevant. They were limited. The tragedy was that nothing was replacing the industry. The government should have made sure that there was investment to replace the failing industry. They were deliberately ending an industry, maybe sooner than it needed to happen, but they were deliberately ending it and putting nothing in its place. Just use the police to batter them into submission. These communities, basically, they just wanted a decent living. They wanted an honest day's pay for an honest day's work. It was the destruction of industries with nothing to replace them that was the betrayal of these people. And Labour have been clear, there will be a managed transition here, that there is going to be a transition, but it will be managed. The government will get involved. We're moving on, but there will be no ghost towns this time. And Keir Starmer prepared a video speech for a conference in New York this weekend, which emphasised the need to work collaboratively with other countries around the world on this and to use net zero for economic gain. The right, we talk about, is the cost, yes. What they don't mention is the costs are much greater for not adopting net zero. but the emphasis needs to be on the economic gains we make. And this couldn't be more different to where the Conservatives are now. You know, some may say there's a lot of disapproval of Sunak's U-turns within the Conservative Party, and that is undoubtedly true. But right now, Sunak is deciding policies, and he has decided to jeopardise our commitments. And when he finally falls at the general election, who really believes that the party will elect a leader who is genuinely committed to net zero and realigns their party with it? With the Tory media pushing against efforts to green our economy, it seems very unlikely that the Conservatives will return to sanity for some time. It's also worth noting that this conference in New York, the Global Citizen Festival, invited both Keir Starmer and Rishi Sunak to prepare a video detailing their policies. Starmer did so. Sunak did not. So he was either unable to commit to a video on his policies because he couldn't be sure what they'd be the next day, or else he had no interest in sharing them with the world. Either is possible. In the wake of Sunak's U-turns, Labour have said that they will re-establish the feasible deadlines. This specifically includes the ban on all new petrol and diesel cars for 2030. It has to be said, there will be some others which have to be delayed even when Labour win power, because the Tories haven't been doing the heavy lifting on these policies. The reason deadlines are set is because it's going to take a certain amount of time to achieve them. If you've got a government who at the moment are not even attempting to achieve them. Like, take, for example, the recent failure of the government to grant any new licenses for offshore wind. Not a single one in the recent auction. Not a single one for offshore wind. So we're not going to get any more offshore wind now for this year. That is a major blow. And it means that until the Tories are removed, progress on net zero, you can actually think of as being completely halted. Apart from, you know, there's some parts of the country where with different administrations, they're pushing it anyway, such as the cities with devolved mayors. But in committing to the legally binding timetable towards net zero, Labour are committing also to moving very quickly because they're going to have to compensate for the Tories' lethargy. Frankly, with Sunak's ill-advised moves last week, I imagine it will now be difficult for anyone to be in any doubt as to the difference between Labour and the Conservatives on like climate change, as well as the future of energy production and manufacturing in the UK. You know, Labour have a policy of wanting to make sure that corporate governance rules means that businesses will have a duty to act in the interest of the environment, as well as making sure that government policies and spending do likewise. So there will be an emphasis there on justifying yourselves in terms of the environment. The Tories have a policy of doing whatever allows the oil companies to make the most profits in the hope of further lucrative contracts with Sunak's father-in-law's company. Night and day. But there we are. I hope you found the video useful. If you did, don't forget to click the like button and subscribe for further content. And until next time, I'll see you later.